Welcome to the Yoga Nation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the One Integration platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast focuses on bullying, self-awareness, and our inner spirit, inviting high-profile guests to share their experiences on these topics. And today, my next guest is a man of many talents. Tyler Copenhaver developed a very recent and successful bullying podcast that is now in its second season. Beyond his deep care of the subject and that of helping kids, he founded a custom car accessory company which boasts the NFL and the Rolling Stones as clients. And as Tyler describes himself as the Underdog Entrepreneur with a passion to help change the world. With gratitude, welcome to the podcast, Tyler.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for breaking the rule, the high profile part. I'm still glad to make it in.
Well, high profile is actually people in the public eye.
All right.
So there you go. Well, speaking of the public eye, Tyler, how did you come up with the title of your podcast, Bully This, A Hero's Journey?
You know, like Bully This to me was kind of a finger in the eye a little bit towards bullying, you know, It's like bully this, you know, it's like, and part of the premise of Bully This is we show like people that were bullied in their youth and then do something, you know, like amazing in their adulthood. And the idea is we show kids there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you know, Cliff, my co-host, you know, he was bullied as a kid, you know, and then he became like number 5 middleweight in the world in the UFC, you know, like That's incredible, you know, and so bully that, right? You know, like he doesn't get bullied anymore, I promise you, you know, and so it's a little bit of that. And then we call it the hero's journey because I'm fascinated by the hero's journey. I actually use it in my business Glaive too. And the idea is Joseph Campbell went out and he studied all these major stories, you know, and it didn't matter religious background.
And Joseph Campbell is who for the audience?
He wrote the book Man with a Thousand Faces, if I recall, but coined the hero's journey basically. And he was I want to recall a college professor, if I remember right. I haven't talked about him in a minute, but he basically went out and studied all these lores and stories and like incredible, didn't matter background, area of the world, you know, he would study these stories and he found similarities. And he took that similarity and he created what he called the hero's journey. And it was basically in its essence, it doesn't matter where we're from or who we are, we're all tied to the same idea of the story. And Star Wars was actually written off this and several other major things. And so like one thing we attempt to do in Bully This is we attempt to tell that hero's journey, right? And that's why we call it that.
So who's the hero?
The hero is the bullied person that we're bringing the story to life. Yeah.
This so-called victim.
Yeah. What's funny is I got bullied online one time and it's like, you shouldn't call yourself a hero in your podcast. And it's like, I'm not the hero. The guest is the hero, you know? And so anyways, yeah, it's like, so it really attached to the idea of telling people stories and hoping those stories like create a positive impact in a kid's life that maybe is thinking like, you know, like, unfortunately, like, I don't want to be around anymore, you know, like life is hard, you know, it's like, just get through these couple years and like you have the whole rest of life. You know, it feels like so much of life in those couple years, but really it's only the beginning, only the start, only the, you know, small window of it. So,
and it's a journey.
Totally is a journey.
Yeah. Playing back, you mentioned the word online. Curious to find out in your podcast if you also addressed the issue of cyberbullying.
Yeah, we've actually been working on an episode specifically on that. And I put out like so please, if you're interested in that, apply to it. But I put out specifically a message said, hey, if you've been cyberbullied, because that happens a lot, you know, like including a lot of my clients, you know, the more successful my clients are with their social media and stuff, the more likely they are to be bullied. You know, I have a client that got 3.5 million views on a video, you know, not too long ago. There was a lot of hate in there. You know, and so it's like that's the thing that's hard about social media is because when you have a home run hitter video, you're going to suffer for it a little bit in the way that not everybody's going to like it and not everybody's going to be nice to you about it.
So what happens? Do you just ignore it?
You know, you have to believe in what you're doing and then believe that there's greater value in that than the fear of what people will say about you or to you.
But do you still ignore the comments and move forward?
You know, I think it depends on what the comment is, you know, quite often, yes, I don't give voice to people that are in the wrong, you know, and so like I will personally ignore a comment like that. If it's dangerous to people, I will delete a comment like that. If it attempts to be something that's very unfair, maybe I will acknowledge and talk to that comment, you know, or if sometimes it's an educational moment. More often than not, you know, when I actually have a hate comment, I treat it with love. And you'd be amazed. Yeah. And you'd be amazed at how often people apologize to me. Almost every time, honestly.
That's interesting. I mean, how would you even get to that mindset that you can, maybe I'm not phrasing this correctly, but when I think of cyberbullying, I think of just mainly ignoring it. You know, there are going to be haters, fine, you move on. It doesn't let it affect you.
Yeah.
But again, for the person that's listening in the quiet corner of their room, how would they be able to assess what you just said about cyberbullying and make sure that they're okay, it doesn't affect them, nor would it do undue harm for them?
You know, like, here's the thing. It's like we all grow, right? The person I am today is a lot bit different than yesterday. You know, the person I am today, you can't bully me. You can't touch me, right? There was a point in my life you probably could. You could touch me with those comments, you know? And so, like, one particular instance recently, somebody said something pretty nasty to me, and I can't recall exactly what it was. And I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you stopped here to say it to me, because I can take it, right? And that keeps you from doing it to somebody else today, at least for this moment. And he actually responds, he's like, he said something actually like, I can appreciate what you said there, you know? And so it's like, bully me, you know, come after me. I'd rather you come after me than somebody else, you know? It's like, and I've grown to the point where you can't get me, you know? And so like, but some people aren't at that level yet. And I hope they do get to that level. I'm at that level now, you know, but that takes time. That takes doing hard things. That takes, you know, investing in yourself, you know, physically, mentally, all these things, you know? And then you realize, you know, when you put yourself out there in the world, you know, you're going to get some hurt, you know, unfortunately. And but I think constantly about the kid that's sitting at home. Like, one of the inspirations for Bully This was a documentary I saw called Bully, and it made me sick. You know, it's like, and I had to do something about it. And I tell people, if it checks you in the heart and it checks you in the stomach, you have to do something about it. If it makes you sick, you have to, you know? And so, like, I risked, you know, going out there. My biggest fear was the camera a couple of years ago. But by approaching my biggest fear, I can't tell you how much it's changed my life. I mean, we're sitting in my studio right now. This is a guy that was afraid of the camera, you know, not that many years ago, and I'm in my own studio. You know? So
yeah, it's a beautiful studio, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, growing up, you had a rough childhood. You were on welfare. What was that experience like, and how did that translate into the person you are today as a philanthropist?
I am so thankful for it. So thankful for it. You know, it's like, and there was one thing that like draws in my mind lately, because it was hard to initially start talking about, and I would think, like, why isn't there more stories out there that I can be inspired by? It's like nothing against Mark Zuckerberg or whatever. I'm not about to start bullying him, you know, but it's like, I can't be inspired by Mark's story. That's not my even close to like something I can resonate with. Hey, go to Harvard or have a McDonald's, like, and then you end up with Facebook. It's like, what part of that was in my life? None. I can't be inspired by that. But I'm like, who are the people I can be inspired by? Who's the kid whose father was in prison, grew up on welfare, like parents are all messed up, and still makes it to do something?
So that was you.
That was me, you know? And it's like, and there wasn't enough of those stories out there. And I was like, why? You know, I'm like, why can't I look at, and for one, those people are probably afraid to talk about it. Sure. But for two, I think now not enough of us are making it, you know? Not enough of us are making it. And that's why those of us that are have to talk about it, so you can inspire somebody else to know they can too.
And a lot of it, I think, is that transfer of knowledge.
Yeah.
From you to perhaps the listening audience.
I absolutely think that knowledge is the biggest thing. It's like, I can hand somebody $1,000 right now, or I can hand them like my brain in starting a business, and my brain in starting a business is going to be way more valuable, you know?
Yeah.
That's the value in everything, is the knowledge.
So I'm just trying to think in terms of your message, is it relatability in terms of you growing up, or hopefully do you think your message can apply to a broader set of folks with different personalities and different backgrounds?
I think my message is for anybody. I speak to underdogs a ton because, you know, there is like a ton of data on the ability to overcome adversity, and bullying is adversity, right?
Sure.
And so if you can overcome adversity, it's the most likely indicator that you'll be successful. And my goal is getting people past their adversities so they can have those success, because guess what? They go back and they change the things they're passionate about.
Right.
So it's like, you have to get a bullied kid past getting bullied, because they're going to go back and they're going to be a mentor for bullied kids, or, you know, like a cause, or, you know, it's like, so like those that suffer through it and get past it are the ones that change it.
True. That's right. And then just trying to formulate my next thought as it relates to the whole society that we're in today that talks about and put a lot of focus on mental health. Mm-hmm. What is the correlation between adversity to mental health, which I don't like to use the word mental health. I think it's mental growth. Yeah. That's a mindset change that I'm trying to instill in others.
You know, it's so crazy because you have like David Goggins out there, you know, and do you know who
1,000 push-ups or pull-ups a day?
Yeah, and like mental toughness.
Yeah.
Mental toughness is a real thing. It's an incredibly powerful tool, you know?
Yeah.
Turning it off is another thing altogether. And nobody talks about that part, right? You know, like my body is broken, my mind's a little bit broken from mental toughness. You know, it's like I would push through a workout I shouldn't, you know, I would wake up when I hadn't had any, you know, energy or power to do that day and did it anyways.
Do you still do 26 a week?
What's that?
Do you still do 26 a week?
26 workouts a week? Yeah. Unfortunately, I would love to, I can't. So my back's broken, you know, I've got some other issues. And so that's my point. It's like I used to live for those 26-hour workouts a week. And believe it or not, I did it for 8 years consistently, 26 workouts a week. There wasn't often, you know, including Christmas, I'd go find a couple workouts that day. You know, it's like there wasn't often.
Is it morning, afternoon, or is it just...
You know, like it started, like I'd start with a weightlifting routine at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, and then I would go hit pads at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I would take a lunch break and I'd kickbox and roll jujitsu noon, you know, and then pick up another workout later on that day. When I was in college, I also took ballet and capoeira. So those were a couple more workouts I added on.
What?
Capoeira.
What's that?
It's Brazilian dance fighting. So the Brazilian slaves weren't allowed to practice mixed martial arts, martial arts.
Yeah.
And so they developed this dance, basically, style of fighting where they were training martial arts, but it looked like dance.
I'll be darned.
It's the most beautiful form of martial arts, probably. You know, like it's flips and handstands and crazy stuff. I did it for like just a semester in college, but yeah, it's interesting stuff. Another workout.
Wow, that's really neat. I guess something I'll have to go research myself.
Yeah, check it out. Like the people that do it well, it's so amazing. It's a beautiful martial art. It's more like, you know, it's more like you see like what are the Cirque people? Almost like Cirque in a way. I hope it doesn't diminish it for anybody out there, but like you know how incredible athletes or Cirque performers are. Yeah. I mean, people in capoeira are similar. Like they can do flips, they can do crazy kicks. You know, like they do handstand stuff. It's all wild. You know. So, yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
On your website, doing some research on your background, Tyler, I came across these 5 principles, that mention treating your life like a role-playing character.
Yeah.
And you describe things such as reading and studying increase intelligence. We all know that from our education, schooling. Exercising and training increases strength. That's probably mental and physical strength as well.
Totally.
Gymnastics increases dexterity.
Yeah.
And 2 things that I wanted to touch base and double click on is you mentioned socializing increases charisma. And I happen to believe, and maybe you can correct me, but it's kind of lost in today's generation.
I agree 100%. You know, kids do get a little bit siloed to the video games and the online presence and their phones and things like that. And, you know, we're all human animals. And, you know, there's a really interesting documentary. It's called Happy on Netflix, at least I think it was, and it was basically diagnosing the happiest populations in the planet. And one of the biggest things is being social, right? And a lot of times it was the social groups that had mother, grandfather, father, all living in the same household, right? Or different yet, I think they've focused on a Danish community, if I recall correctly, and they lived in like a co-living apartment, basically. And so there was 200 people that lived in there, and one time a month you had to cook dinner for everybody, but everybody ate dinner together. You know, it's like, and it's proven that like one of the keys for us humans to be happy is being social. You know, and so I think it's an important part of building yourself and finding your tribe. Right.
Then how do you influence today's generation to not be on their cell phones and look up when you're at a Starbucks?
I think a lot of that comes down to what I, advise on the bullying subject too. It's like you have to find a community, right? Like for me, it was my mixed martial arts community. Love those guys, right? You know, I loved being around them. It was about the training, yes, but just as much that was my only social thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I was going out on a Friday night, it was good to watch a fight with the guys, or something like that. And so like my whole social group came from that. And, mixed martial arts isn't for everybody, but find photography, find, art, whatever your thing is. And then here's the thing too, around bullying is like the stats are incredible if you can just find a kid one friend, right? One friend makes a huge difference, because once a kid's siloing on their own, that's when they're in trouble. You get one friend. So I say become some involvement with the community, which means being social to some extent. It can be video games.
Right.
Join a group that you get into video games together.
But there is that community of online gamers, as an example.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing's ill will about them, but that community fosters social interaction through technology.
Yeah. It's interesting. I like the belonging factor, and I like some of that, but at the same time, it's a little bit trouble, I think, because I think we need actual human involvement. And so better than nothing, I guess I would say. But then you even have I probably shouldn't go too deep into this because my memory's a little foggy on it, but I think Japan right now is having a vast majority of people that aren't getting married these days, and they're actually almost wifing technology. There's video games basically you can have almost a wife. Yeah. And I think that's a little dangerous. I think we still need each other. I think we need to figure out ways to interact with one another. So
is this more of a lesson to the parent to help raise their child?
I think it's for both. For the kid out there that's I have my online community, great. I'm glad you have that. I think that's important. But also, get around some people. Find one thing that you like to do, music, art, whatever it is, and see if you can find a friend that you can hang out with too. Because I think that part's important.
That's meaningful from a reality standpoint, having real relationships.
Yeah. I think it's important. You want a friend that you can go out to dinner with once in a while, that sort of stuff. I mean, depends your age group, or whatever, right. But one person's so important.
Yeah. That's right. Thinking of a glass of wine right now.
Yeah.
The fifth element that you write about in terms of treating your life like a role-playing character has to do with experience and hardship increases wisdom.
Yeah.
In what way?
Every lesson we learn, really, the best lessons are all from something hard, right? And, I've had periods in my life where, especially when people that know me, they're like, you have gone through a lot of stuff, It's I've actually been told to write a book about some of it because it's probably such bad luck at the same time. But now I have to be thankful for it because it's what I use daily to help everybody, It's what inspires me, It's what I learned from, It's
right.
We touch the stove, it's hot. We learn that lesson, right? And so you can involve that in business, in life. We have these hard things that happen to us. We learn, how to avoid them or how to get through them. And there is, it's that adversity builds people, right? And so, and then I explain it this way, and I hope.
But how do you get a young person to internalize that? They may hear it, they may understand it, but they haven't digested in their heart. What do you say to that? How do you say to that?
The only thing I can say is bully this at that point. It's because bully this shows you that there is people that have gone through things similar to you.
Right.
And they've come out the other side and they've done amazing things because of it. Right. And so I'm trying to prove in a way that if you make this through this, it becomes a big part of the things that you can accomplish in your life.
So what's it going to be like on the other side?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm showing them hopefully a window into this stuff's, I say all the time, it's this stuff's tough. You got handed it anyways. So you can use it to destroy or you can use it as a gift. It's been given to you, You can decide, there's a wonderful book, psychologist that goes to a Nazi concentration camp, Man's Search for Meaning, and Viktor Frankl. And he says, I'm paraphrasing, you can't control what happens to you, only your reaction towards it.
Sure.
Right. And so I'm always and I'm a proponent. You could get mad about that too, not in a way that's destructive, but in a way that's productive. Get mad about your success. Get mad about making it to success so you can change that thing that drives you nuts.
Do kids understand that though?
I like to hope that if you give them the right message, kids are, here's the difference too, is like kids are actually more intelligent than they ever have been. Like this access to technology gives them an incredible amount of knowledge base, that even like 20 years ago wasn't available, And so like, I like to think that we can give kids more of the benefit of the doubt these days.
But playing devil's advocate, they're not using it in the right way.
They might not be, and it's hard to see. And that's why I try to coin things in a way that's like a little bit more digested. Treat your life like a role-playing character, right? It's like to get them to think about these things. It's like they're online playing these video games. It's like when you build that avatar, and you make him chop wood, he gets stronger. You make him read a book, he gets smarter. Think about that a little bit in your own life, right?
So you can become your own avatar in real life.
You do. And it takes a hell of an avatar to accomplish things, right?
Yeah.
And but you could be building that. If you could think this way, teenage years, is like you build that avatar. That's the one thing you're going to use no matter what you do. Business, art, being a marine biologist, that avatar, if you build it strong, if you build it smart, if you build it, through adversity, like these are what you get to take with you no matter what. Nobody can take it away.
So that's how they internalize it.
Yeah, I hope. And that's why I really try to bring it down to that level. It's like you're spending the time to build the character online. Spend the time to build your character in life a little bit. And think about those meter bars going up. I used to think about that all the time. It's like Tyler goes to the gym today, he's going to lift weights. That little strength meter just went up a little bit, right?
Sure.
Tyler just pulled out his book. That little intelligence meter just went up a little bit.
And if you haven't seen his biceps, they're pretty big.
It works, folks. I wasn't always this guy, too. You can build your avatar, I was like, I think I was like when I was 13 years old, I was 5'2" and 100 pounds, 90 pounds, something like that, So now I'm 6'2", 225, and a lot of that is built, right? You can't control height. I happen to just get taller, but you can control everything else. Predominantly my body wants to be probably pretty skinny. That's my genetics. I've taken it past that because I work hard at it.
Right. Final question, Tyler. What advice would you give your younger self from the days that you were in poverty, being on welfare? What would you say to your younger self?
I wish like I could analyze this enough to give kids the magic ticket, towards getting past it, or whatever. But I think the one thing when I'm speaking to underdogs is like, I don't care what it is in life. And maybe it sounds a little cliche. You can have whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter where you were raised, what you came from, who you are. This is not the avatar that you have to run through the entire life with. You can change that avatar by lifting weights, by reading books, by gaining an education, you know. This is, and build that person into somebody, especially if you have a kind heart. One of my things is like, I'm out to support underdogs and build more kind-hearted badasses, right? Like that's one of my things on this planet. And that's why I teach business stuff for free. That's why I'm involved in philanthropy. That's why I'm talking about weightlifting and, things like that, is because we need more kind-hearted badasses making it. And every single one of you can make it and be a kind-hearted badass. That avatar, you can build it.
No matter where they came from.
No matter where they came from.
Okay.
Fully convinced. And that, in fact, the rougher circumstances you come from, the more likely you are to be successful as long as you can get past it.
And having that community to help support you through that transition.
If you can find it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tyler, it's been an honor.
Thank you so much, Yogi. Absolute pleasure to be here.
Likewise. Thank you again.
Thank you.